What is going on, guys? I'm Tim Kelly. He is Bob Cooney. Anthony is on assignment this week. He'll be back next week, but that just means you get another day of the Tuesday show here on Thursday. It is the OnPattison Podcast. Bob, how are you doing? It's crazy time in Philly sports as always, and we're going to zig a little bit while other people zag today on today's show.
Yeah, you are a big zigger when most people are zagging. So yeah, your subjects are interesting, Tim. We have an interesting one going on today, and great time in Philly sports. Great time for national sports. Although you and other people that are in this show don't really care for the Masters, but I'm representing. I got Masters. I'm ready to roll, Tim.
Well, and what I do care for is winners, because winners win, Bob. And Wapner Newman has been winning for families throughout the Philadelphia area and New Jersey since 1978. You need a winner? Call Wapner Newman, 215-569-0900, or visit wapnernewman.com. They are the sponsor of today's show and many other things on OnPattison, and we are always appreciative. And as Bob said, as I said, we're going to talk about the state of Citizens Bank Park today. It is the biggest year yet at Citizens Bank Park. The stadium opened in 2004, but this is the first time that it will host the All-Star Game. So, yeah, first time it's going to host the All-Star Game. And we wanted to kind of break down, because there's been a lot of changes at Citizens Bank Park over the last few years, and there will continue to be moving forward, where things stand with the stadium, because it's been a very popular destination. Obviously, when the Phillies are good, you're looking at 3 to 4 million fans a year. But there have been some changes the last few years, and we covered them pretty in depth on OnPattison a few weeks ago when the Phillies unveiled some of them. And Mike Warren, our producer today, he's going to put up some of the pictures, because I don't want this to be all negative, but some of the pictures of the new Hall of Fame club this year, which I think is a positive. You have a Dick Allen wall, a uniform exhibit, a bunch of really cool stuff. And I like the old Hall of Fame club that had the baseball wall and some of the other exhibits, but I don't know that it needed to drastically be changed. They did drastically change it this year. And Bob, I think as you can see from it, it looks pretty cool. It looks much more modern in update, and I like it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's a really great area. If you get a chance, you got to get down and take a look at it and all. There's such a good history, and I think the Phillies do a good job. And even when you go back, which our listeners haven't been able to do, if you're able to go into the media area and where we work, the back hallways there with all the front pages from when they won World Series and championships and stuff like that, and different iconic moments of the organization that are prominently displayed. I think they do a really, really good job. Is there some updating to do, which we'll get into? Absolutely. But there is some really cool stuff down there.
I think the thing on screen right now where Mike Schmidt's talking about Dick Allen, that's one of the coolest things. And you know John Middleton had to say in that, because he's about as big of a Dick Allen fan as there is. And that quote from Mike Schmidt that he gave about Dick Allen, and for anyone that hasn't seen it, the speech that Mike Schmidt did when they retired Dick Allen's number in 2020 was amazing. I mean, I've never seen Mike Schmidt give a speech like that, but he did an incredible job. And I would suggest, if you haven't seen it, to go back and watch it. But that's kind of one of the positives. You've seen this Hall of Fame club updated. And again, I like the old Hall of Fame club. I think the new one is very good. But one area that's really become a sticking point, and I'm perhaps in part to blame for this, is the analog clock in center field. The clock had been there since the stadium opened in 2004, but it was taken down last July for the Phillies to put a new All-Star Game logo up there. And the clock is a callback to Connie Mack Stadium. And one of the things I wanted to do, the Phillies do this event every year, What's New at the Ballpark. They really ramped it up this year, because not only do they have this new stuff, but it's just a gigantic year with the All-Star Game. And one of the things I wanted to do was kind of nail down, okay, what's the future? Is the clock going to come back? It's been temporarily displaced, but once the All-Star Game takes place in July, presumably after that, the All-Star Game logo is going to come down in center field, which would reopen the spot that the clock was at. And one of the reasons I thought it was so interesting is because a few years ago, when the Phillies got rid of the old out-of-town scoreboard at Citizens Bank Park, which I thought was one of the coolest features in the stadium, they got rid of that for the new digital board, which is mostly ads. It shows some advanced stats, and occasionally you'll get out-of-town scoreboards, but really it's an ad board. They just did that without really telling anybody. We showed up the beginning of the 2024 season, and that was there, and that was that. With this, there's kind of been a period where there's been room for debate. And I don't know if the public sentiment matters at all in this, but I kind of wanted to get John Middleton's thoughts on whether the clock would return once the All-Star Game is in the rearview mirror in July. And he spoke to me at length, and this is what he had to say. And we're joined now by Matt Breen of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Matt wrote an excellent story with Eileen Callis, who's the widow. Sorry, that's the wrong.
Clock probably won't be going back up after the All-Star.
I don't think there's any reason to put the clock back up. Honestly, I'm telling you, if you ask the 3.375 million people who came to our ballpark last year, how many of those people do you think would know that clock represents the clock on top of the right field scoreboard? Seriously, 5%, 10%.
But do you think the nostalgia of it having been in this stadium for 20 years, people miss it?
The world changes. New people, you get new fans, new customers. So people, there are younger people who look at that and say, "Why is that there? I've got my phone. I don't need a clock. Why is it there? Who cares?" And by the way, I saw Johnny Callison hit that clock and have an inside the park home run. He was past second base when the ball hit the field, came down and hit the field, and he slid under the tag. I remember that clock very, very, very well.
Yeah, well, first of all, I guess the elephant in the room there is the wine in his cup. That
how did he not spill it, Tim? Like, I'm watching it the whole time. Like, John, what are you doing? Don't spill your wine. Don't spill your wine. That's red wine. Leaves stains.
Right, and I honestly thought he was drinking Coke or Pepsi when we were talking. I did not pay attention to it, but I know people got a kick out of it. I don't think he had been drinking much. Like, I read some of the comments in response to the video, which kind of blew up, and people saying that, like he came off as disconnected. I appreciate that he spoke to us because honestly, most owners would not do that, would not talk. John Middleton will walk around the stadium by himself. He's not with a huge entourage as many people in that wealth bracket and power bracket are. So I appreciate that he talks in a candid manner. I disagree with what he had to say. And I think the fact that he said he is in his early 70s and he remembers being at Connie Mack Stadium and seeing Johnny Callison hit the ball off that clock. Well, that's why these features at a stadium to me are so important, because they provide these moments. And I don't know if the Phillies did any sort of focus testing with this in terms of actually talking to young people. I get the sense that a bunch of older people or older than me people got in a room and kind of said, well, kids today, they don't care about clocks. I actually think quite a few people that are younger do appreciate that. And it's not that I don't get the need for more ads, love it or hate it, like it is what it is. John Middleton did say in a different story that we're going to get to a little later in the show, if you want to have a high payroll, this is kind of part of the trade-off, that you need to have some of these ads in place because they make a ton of money. I totally get that. But to say that, well, we don't need it because people have cell phones. One of the things about going to a baseball game is that you're disconnecting from technology, and Citizens Bank Park specifically was built in this modern retro style where you had some of these callbacks to the past. And if people don't know what the clock is for, you should teach them what the clock is for. And even those that don't know what it was for, I think came to associate it with Citizens Bank Park because it was there for 20 years. And I will tell you, I, at all times in the press box, have a laptop and a phone in front of me. And I still found myself last year when they put the All-Star Game logo up there, looking up to see what time it was. I did look up at that clock, and, it's not in the grand scheme of everything happening in the world. It doesn't matter. I get that. I'm not making way too big of a deal about it, but it's the little things that make a ballpark special. And I think you're walking a fine line when you take some of these things away from a park.
Okay, so here's a couple ways of looking at it. One, let's look at you first. You are not the normal 30-year-old when it comes to baseball fandom or Philadelphia fandom. And I don't mean that in a mean way, Tim. I have a son, my oldest son is just like you. He adores the history of baseball. He can sit down with 70-year-olds and talk about games in the 40s, 50s, 60s that I can't do. So your appreciation for that is probably different than most your age, I want to say. If I were to say to a normal 30-year-old, oh, that clock is from Connie Mack Stadium. Oh, really, Dad, or Mr. Cooney, whatever. What was Connie Mack Stadium? I can't tell. I was never at Connie Mack Stadium. I wasn't old enough to go to Connie Mack Stadium. And, I'm a little bit of an older fan or whatever. So in that way, I think you're just a little bit different. I love your sentimentality, but I just don't think so many people do have that. And if anybody is going to get that, it's going to be a John Middleton who saw that clock come into play on a Johnny Callison base hit. He doesn't have that. So I understand how his view is kind of, if I don't have it as someone that saw that clock in play at Connie Mack, why are these 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds really going to have an appreciation for it? The underlying thing here is, and it bothers us all, is ads, advertisements. It takes over the world, as we know. When I was young, watching hockey games, you didn't have any advertisements along the boards. The boards were just plain white boards that had a bunch of black marks on them for where the puck hit them. Now, Flyers away games, home advertising goes around the boards when you're watching on TV. It's the way of the world. Does it take away some of this sentimentality? That's a shame. It is a shame. But I wish people took it as like to heart as much as you do, Tim, because that shows your appreciation of the history of this organization, of the history of baseball. But if I had to be on a voting side, I think I kind of agree with Middleton. Like, yeah, times change, and unfortunately, this is the way you have to go.
Times do change, and I think the second they took that clock down, it was never going back up. I don't know this for a fact, but anyone with common sense can conclude that they're putting an ad up there after the All-Star Game.
I would say so, yeah.
Some gambling company or something is going to be there, and I get that. That's prime real estate, and I'm not even against ads. Like, I think you look back at what Citizens Bank Park was when it first opened, and the walls are all green with the stadium almost looks naked with no ads. So I'm not against ads. I just think there's a fine line where you get to the point where it becomes overstimulating, that it's almost, you got the Asplund thing on covering the flower beds, and you have all these digital boards, and like you're losing. This was not a park that was built to be state of the art, like modern. It was in the mold of Camden Yards or Oracle Park, where it's kind of this throwback. And the Phillies were just at Oracle Park, and I don't get that same feeling watching their games. It's not that they don't have ads, but not every square inch of the stadium covered in ads, which I think is where you're kind of trending in this case.
Well, one of the things when you look at Oracle Park, what's one of the first things you see is the big glove out in left field, right? And isn't there like a Coca-Cola sign right above that? It's the way
thing about the Coke sign is, though, Coke is such like an iconic brand that it almost doesn't feel like an ad.
It doesn't feel like an advertisement.
It feels like Americana, that you have like this giant Coke bottle up there. That's cool. That's like when Pittsburgh had the ketchup bottles at what was Heinz Field.
Right.
You almost don't think of it because you're so and you don't think of Citizens Bank as an ad almost. I remember when the name came out, people being like, oh, it's a corporate sponsor. Now we're so used to it that it doesn't matter. And maybe we'll get there with some of these other things. I just think there has to be some sort of balance.
Yeah, the cool thing is, like, Tim, if you look at the old parks, right? So Wrigley, if you look outside, Fenway, if you look outside the stadium, you see the big, it's not a Citgo. Is it a big Citgo ball out there that you can see beyond left field? Not in the stadium. Dodger Stadium, I think you and I were talking about that the other day. When you look out the center field, not in the field of play, but obviously a huge advertisement out there that you can see. That would be cool if it was outside of the stadium. Somehow the skyline that you can see from Philadelphia, from behind home plate and the press box and all. I don't know if there was a building that had a huge something on it, whether it be a gas station or something. That would be cool outside of the stadium, but advertisement is the way. It does. It stinks if it takes away, as I said earlier, the sentimentality that they were trying to build. And you're exactly right. The out-of-town scoreboard in left field, I hated that left. And I know you were a big, you were opposite of that also. I like that. I like to look and see, oh, look at that. They were down 4-0 in the second. Now they're up 6-4 in the third. I love that stuff.
Well, and you had shared experiences in the park when it's September and the Braves go down or the Mets go down, the entire park cheers, and you don't get that same feeling with people looking at scores on their phone. And the other thing I thought was cool was you get to the NLCS or even the World Series and there's no other games up on the board, which is probably where they realized, what are we doing? We have all this real estate where there should be ads. But there was, in the very rare cases that you make it to the World Series or the NLCS, there was something so cool about looking out at that old board and nothing else is up there because you've made it further than 27, 28 other teams. And that's lost. And they have like a similar board in Pittsburgh, and maybe just nobody wants to advertise for the Pirates, although PNC Park is as popular a stadium as there is. So I would think they still have a board like that in Pittsburgh. That's cool. What I would say about the clock, just one other note on that, is that even people that don't remember Connie Mack Stadium, it was at Citizens Bank Park long enough that people began to associate. I'll be honest with you, until a few years ago, I didn't know the Connie Mack connection, but I knew from the moment Citizens Bank Park opened, it was there. And then I learned the Connie Mack and I grew a greater appreciation for it. And one of the things that I don't understand in some of these cases is why there can't be some sort of balance. Okay, you want to put an ad there. You want to name Harry the K's the Ghost Energy Deck and get a sponsor. I get it. Why couldn't it have been Harry the K's at the Ghost Energy Deck or a Ghost Energy Deck at Harry the K's, whatever? And in this case with the clock, you want to put an ad there, go for it. Why can't the clock go somewhere else in the stadium or even outside? I think it would almost outside the stadium where the old vet bell is. That vet bell has become one of the coolest parts, which the Phillies threw into the trash basically when Veterans Stadium open. They tracked it back down. I believe it was 2019 that they got that bell out there. And now people love to go out there and take pictures with it. There's a sign. It's such a cool thing. The Marlins did this at Lone Depot Park when they wanted to get rid of the home run sculpture. They weren't allowed to do it because it was considered a piece of art. Derek Jeter wanted to get rid of it, and the city of Miami didn't allow them. So they had to move it outside the stadium. And when you're outside Lone Depot Park now, you see that out there. I honestly wish they kept it in the stadium because that stadium needed something. But in this case, if you want to put the ad in the stadium, that's fine. Put the clock outside somewhere and it would become an attraction. And arguably more people could learn about it because you could put a historical marker explaining what it was in Citizens Bank Park and what the inspiration was for it. And you could even sell an ad next to it. Like I think in some of these cases that there's a way to kind of split the difference.
Yeah, I think the clock will be prominently displayed. I thought of that when it came down, when you and I were having discussions about it. I think it will go somewhere with a plaque to say, this is the clock that, that hung in Citizens Bank Park since its inception. Also was at Connie Mack Stadium, maybe tell the Johnny Carlson story. We see that all over the country, right? Like if you walk around Citibank Field, I believe there's a spot where the like Rusty Staub, this is where the ball landed when he hit a home run against somebody. And all throughout the parking lot, and when you walk around where the Mets play, there's different things out there. Like this used to be where the pitching mound was that Doc Gooden threw a no-hitter, whatever.
They have the old apple outside Citi Field.
That's
that
right.
was from
Yeah,
Shea
that's right.
Stadium.
I hate that thing. But just because I hated the Mets as a kid. But I do. I think they'll find something with this. They have done a good job. As you mentioned with the bell, the Phil and Phyllis statue. Don't they have that somewhere now, Tim, also?
Yeah, I'm blinking, and I'm neutral. I think Phil and Phyllis are a little creepy, to tell you the truth. But there is like a historical nature of Phil and Phyllis, and I understand why they're back this year. But I think the Phillies made the right move switching to the Fanatic when they did. I don't think Phil and Phyllis would be quite as popular.
Yeah, he's made a name for himself. But that's the greatest thing about baseball. And I've been to Camden Yards many times. And when you walk out on Utah Street there, and they have all of the different things there from home runs by different people and all, Eddie Murray and going back in the day. And you and I have been fortunate enough to go to a lot of the away ballparks. You see sentimentality. I feel like I've used that word 1,000 times, but you see it everywhere. And it's cool. And that's what baseball is. It's the remembrance of it. I appreciate so much that you are so, into all of this. And I do. I don't think you're going to fall on deaf ears. I think that clock is going to be prominently displayed somewhere. Once you get the wine out of John Middleton's hand, I think he'll start thinking a little bit more clearly about what he's going to do with this clock. I think
It
he
is
caught him a
fun-
little off guard on his second
I
glass
might
of red
have.
wine.
It is funny. Like, I can't think of an industry that's more evil than the oil industry. But I look up and I see that Citgo sign, or what's the gas station in LA? It's a number
76, right? Isn't it
76.
76? Yeah.
That spinning thing beyond and it's there's something so relaxing about watching that spin, and I'm like, this is cool. Even though I don't think of
You are messed up.
in any other company or in any other context, I'd be like, get this gas station away from me. But in the context of something that's been at a baseball stadium or outside it for years, I think it's cool. Something that had been at Citizens Bank Park since it opened in 2004 was Harry the K's. Obviously, this was a big storyline as well before the season. The Phillies renamed it the Ghost Energy Deck, which I'll be honest with you, Bob, I'm not sure I've ever been in Harry the K's. It's been a number of years since I've attended a game as a fan. And even when I was, I don't think I ever was in that part of the stadium. But I understand, and I am a little surprised that maybe the Phillies were surprised that there was some outrage about this name change. You have something named after the most iconic broadcaster in the history of a city that's had a lot of iconic broadcasters, and you changed it, and there wasn't really even much of an acknowledgement of what you did, even though, yes, I get that you still have the Harry Callis statue. The broadcast booth is named after him. I get all that. But, of course, if you change that for a corporate sponsor, there's going to be some people that are upset.
Yeah, and his wife was upset. Money talks, as we know. Could there have been a better way to handle it? Maybe. Maybe you could have kept his name on there, as you alluded to earlier, along with the naming rights people that came on board. But go to the other side. I'm sorry, you have to look about 50 feet. If you're looking at the old Harry the Case, look at 50 feet to your left, and there's his statue. And his statue's just off of what? Ashburn Alley. Oh, yeah, Ashburn, who's probably better remembered by most our age and my age and younger as an announcer, not as a Philly center fielder. When you and I go into the press box, what's it named after? It's Harry Callis. They've done prominently well by him, and they will continue to do so. I understand the slight that people feel, but if you step back and you realize exactly what happened, that John Middleton said, well, those people buying those rights, that affords us a contract, a major contract. So it's always going to be a business. I don't think that they're slighting Harry in a way of, oh, yeah, forget it, he died, 17 years ago. I think it's more of a move they had to make, and they have in their back pocket that there's a statue, there's a press area, he's in the Wall of Fame. I think Harry is very, very prominently and should be noted at that stadium.
Yeah, he is. And the TV booth, I believe, is the Harry Callis, and the radio booth is Richie Ashburn.
Right.
I do think if they ever tried to sponsor Ashburn Alley, people would probably be more upset, but just because there's not as many things around the stadium honoring Richie Ashburn, although there's less and less people, I guess, that would remember having even heard him as a broadcaster. Certainly very few people alive at this point that remember watching him as a player. But yeah, I mean, John Middleton did say, I think it was Destiny Legardo of Phillies Nation asked him, do you have any plans to sponsor that? And he said they don't. But a year or two from now, someone could come calling there, and that's lucrative. And we'll be having the same discussion. I'm not trying to be naive. I get the business sense of sports, and John Middleton and the Phillies, it's hard to complain with how they've spent. Maybe they're not quite the Dodgers or the Mets, but there's not many teams spending more than the Phillies. And I don't know, on paper, obviously team values go up, but I don't know whether they're turning a profit in some of these seasons. So I get why they're spending this money, but there is a balance to be struck. And I thought Matt Breen of the Philadelphia Inquirer did a great story a few weeks ago talking with Eileen Callis, who's Harry Callis's widow, about this, the fallout from Harry the K's. And she had a lot to say about what she had been making, or what the family had been making for the royalties and the future of High Hopes, which is obviously, you got a podcast named after it with Jack Fritz and James Seltzer at WIP. There's a beer named after it, I think, with Glenn Macnow's Conshohocken Brewery. And the song plays after games that the Phillies win. So it's a staple of Phillies games. It may not always be in the future, though. And we had a great conversation with Matt Breen. He wasn't able to join us live, but we talked with him this morning. And if Mike, if you have that queued up, we can go to that now, because I think Matt had a lot of really good points to make. And we're joined now by Matt Breen of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Matt wrote an excellent story with Eileen Callis, who's the widow of Harry Callis, in the Philadelphia Inquirer a couple weeks back now. And it pertained to a lot of what we're talking about on today's episode. And Matt, just from a big picture sense, what were your general thoughts on, I guess, what her reaction was to the renaming of Harry the K's, the Ghost Energy deck, and the fact that she had been paid $20,000. The family had been paid $20,000 per year. They'll continue to do that this year, but it seems like moving forward, that is not something that's going to be taking place.
Yeah, she was clearly upset. She felt like they, betrayed Harry Callis and his legacy. And we had written a couple days earlier the reaction of the Ghost Energy founder, of how he felt about kind of the backlash that was out there, and then Todd Callis, who's one of Harry's sons, what he thought about it. And then she reached out and said, she would like to talk. So it was only fair to give her, a platform, since we gave these other people a platform to give their opinions. And obviously, like you said, like, she was not happy about it. And she, the legacy is real, but I mean, it's also, and she said it's about the legacy, not about the money, but I'm sure the money is a part of it too. $20,000. She's 74 years old. I don't know her finances, but I always just imagine my grandparents. What if the union, the teachers union, told my grandma that the pension wasn't going to come to her anymore, that was my granddad's. I'm sure she would have been upset about it too. So I can see where she's coming from, but I also, I see where the Phillies are coming from. I don't. You've been to a ton of ballparks just like I have, and there's not many that honor a broadcaster the way the Phillies do. And you got the video and the quotes from John Middleton at the Hall of Fame Club thing. And again, it's easy to laugh, like he's holding the glass of wine and what he said, but how many other owners just in Philadelphia are standing there talking to you like that and giving you those quotes? So, there's two sides to it. The Phillies still are going to have a statue for Harry Callis. He's still in the Wall of Fame. Broadcast booth is still named after him, which is also visible to the fans because it's on the outside of the brick on the Hall of Fame Club too. So there's still a lot for Harry Callis, but I mean, probably most importantly is that they're not going to no longer pay $20,000 to his wife for his likeness.
So, Matt, the other part of it, the high hopes deal that Eileen Callis brought up also, where does that stand? Does she have a leg to stand on that? Because, I mean, it's just a video of him singing a song. I don't know if there was contractual obligations in that. And also, wasn't there an easy way to get around this, like with just keeping maybe Harry's name with the ghost or, something like that? Couldn't it have been resolved pretty easily?
Probably. But again, like if you're paying a company is paying a lot of money, they probably, and this is just going off, my own opinion, like they probably want their name on it. Like they're paying, a lot of money.
Sure.
John Middleton told Tim it was enough to fund a player. So imagine how much that is. And as much as this guy grew up in Westchester listening to Harry Callis, he probably wants his brand on the signage by itself. And the song, the video was shot at after Harry got inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2002 in Cooperstown. Most likely, everyone believes it was shot by a Phillies employee, Dan Stevenson, who shot everything. So the video is obviously the Phillies own the video, but the likeness is Harry Callis. And so I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that that's his likeness. It's his voice. He's singing someone else's song, but it's still him. And part of that contract that I saw that she signed with the Phillies said $20,000 a year it specifically said like for the name of our ballpark restaurant, Harry the K's. and any other likeness of him, voice or video, in the ballpark. So that included the song. And so I do think she has a leg to stand on. And I also don't think the Phillies are going to, and they're not going to win that fight if they're going to say, we're not going to pay you anymore. And then but next season we're going to play the song, even though you've said you can't play the song. Like, then it's just another fight. So I would just guess that the song fades away after the season. And that's just, again, that's not me, just on my instincts and how these things usually go. And to the other side of that, I mean, they started playing the song in 2009 after Harry Kalas died. And it was a neat touch, I thought, for that season. They had they had HK on the left field wall after he died. And I think they've played it since, but I just don't. And Tim, you've been in the ballpark after games, a ton of times. I don't think the song, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Harry Kalas, I don't think the song ever caught on the way that it has in other places, like Go Cubs Go or I Love LA. Like, it's not an anthem. There's not, if there's 46,000 people in the ballpark tonight, they're not all staying after a win to sing High Hopes. It just wasn't, like, in reality, someone who's been there a lot, like, I just never thought it was like the Phillies anthem was High Hopes. It was more of a sentimental thing. And it's been more than almost 17 years since they've started playing it. So
yeah,
I know it caused a lot of flack on social media, but I think in reality, I just don't think that song was what people kind of made it seem like it was.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. Like, if you're at Yankee Stadium after a win, or even until like a year or two ago after a loss, everyone is singing the Frank Sinatra song, and it hasn't caught on that way. I don't know. Do they play High Hopes? It's just off the big speaker, right? Or off the big screen. It's not in the speakers throughout the stadium, I don't think.
I don't know. I don't believe so. And then also, like, it's not like at Dodger Stadium, the final out, and like bang, I Love LA comes on. The Phillies, it's not like final out, bang, High Hopes. So it was a final out. Then they did, a little victory song montage. And then 90 seconds later, as people are already kind of leaving and filtering out, they would play it. So, again, I love Harry Kalas. Like, I grew up on Harry Kalas. I wrote a letter to Harry Kalas when I was a kid and got back a 8x10 personalized autograph that I still have. So but I just, in reality, I don't think this song was, and when he died, I thought it was like awesome. The rest of that year, the things they did for Harry Kalas was so cool and like such a great tribute. But I think this, just getting rid of the song and the rooftop, which honestly was not like a spot. Like, I thought that was actually one of the downsides of the ballpark was that area, or is that area. I think the statue is awesome. Like, the ways they still honor Harry Kalas are great. And it's just the part that's sad though, is like, that is, his wife's hurt by this, and then that she's involved, and that kind of strife. But I don't think they're disrespecting Harry Kalas to the fans. Like he's still in that ballpark just as much, if not more, than any other broadcaster in baseball.
The one thing I've thought on all of it, sorry, Bob, the one thing I thought on all of it, though, is I agree with you about Harry the K's, although I still think, like Bob said, and like Eileen said in this story, they could have just made it Harry the K's sponsored by Ghost Energy or Ghost Energy Deck at Harry the K's. But I do think absence will make the heart grow fonder. And if they take this song away, I think there's going to be a backlash. And I wonder if there's a way to kind of find it in between where maybe it's not $20,000 anymore, but that there is some amount of money that goes to her to continue playing this song, because I would notice it if it's not there anymore. And I agree, it's not to the same extent that it is at other stadiums, but there are some fans that like to stay in their seats and play it. And honestly, the Phillies could probably, like you said, do a better job of encouraging that if they played it right away, that type of thing. But I feel like it would create an unnecessary firestorm, as the Harry the Case thing did, for if they just get rid of this next year rather than paying his widow.
It'll definitely be a firestorm if this, like, it just, you see that coming from a mile away. Next opening day, if they win and there's no song, they're going to have to address it, and it's going to be the same firestorm it was 2 weeks ago. And, like, that's part of the deal. So do the Phillies decide to keep the song and pay her whatever the money is, or do they say we're going to wear it for, a month or a season, whatever it is, and move on and find a new song? So it's going to be interesting. I don't know I'm curious to see what they do, honestly, and they will have to decide before opening day, because I think it'll be a topic. They're going to get asked about it after the season. Hey, is the song coming back? Now it's an issue, and it's going to have to be addressed. And I really am curious to see kind of how they handle it.
Well, here in Philadelphia, we just can't let go of things, especially when it comes to songs. We had Kate Smith, the controversy with the Flyers, and now it's finally God Bless America is back with Lauren Hart. We got the Rocky theme, which Rocky came out 60 years ago almost. I mean, come on, what are we doing? We have trouble moving on from songs or things as a sports town, but there has to be resolution here. I mean, we're talking about a song. Yes, Harry's a legend. Nobody is going to deny that ever. And what I wanted to ask you, Matt, was you mentioned, I think Todd Callis is who you mentioned, but weren't there other two sons that you mentioned in your story that said they understand what the Phillies are doing, or am I reading that wrong? I forget. No,
yeah. So Todd Callis, Harry's son, who's a broadcaster with the Houston Astros, he's like, I loved looking out and seeing Harry the Case, but I understand why, and they still honor my dad a lot. And for me, Harry the Case, I never told people, hey, I'll meet you at Harry the Case. It was always like, I'll meet you at the statue, or I'll meet you at Ashburn Alley. And then Kane Callis said he told Dan Gellison from the AP that he was fine with it, and he sings the national anthem before opening day every year, standing next to his dad's statue. But for all sense and purposes, the only opinion really that matters is the mom's. I mean, is Harry's wife's, because she's the one with a written contract with the Phillies. So that's really like it's those are opinions based on his sons, but like contract usually, like the wife has a stake in this because she has a contract with the Phillies signed. So her opinion really is the opinion, and obviously she's not happy about it.
Yeah. The final thing for me, I've talked with you about this a little bit, but just what are your general thoughts on kind of the direction of the stadium? Because that's the focus of this whole episode. You have the Harry the Case thing, but they took away the out-of-town scoreboard a few years ago. You made there's really been an effort to digitalize everything around the stadium. Obviously, you have the analog clock. There are some other upgrades like the Hall of Fame Club that I think have been well received, but how do you feel like the stadium, I guess, the direction of the stadium is headed?
Yeah, I do think they're losing a little bit of the charm. And I know people like to poke fun about the clock. It was just a clock, right? Like, who cares? Like, it's like, yeah, it's just a clock. But it is like, it was something interesting, a little Easter egg, throwback to Connie Mack Stadium. It was like, did I use the clock as a clock? Probably not. But it was just a nice little piece of the ballpark that ballparks have. Football stadiums and basketball arenas, they don't need that kind of stuff. But ballparks, they all need little things to be unique. If it's an out-of-town scoreboard with actually hand-placed team initials on there, like that was cool. That was neat. And they're losing a little bit of that. And for the ads, which, again, you go to these other stadiums and you watch these games with the Phillies are on the road, or you're watching other games, and there's every ballpark's in the same spot right now. There's ads are out of control because they have to pay for contracts and salaries, and it's a business. So I get all that. I just think there is a better way to find a balance than what they're doing. Like, opening day, I was like just walking around the ballpark, and behind the batter's eye was, since it opened, was a timeline of Phillies history. And like the timeline had become outdated. It was made in 2004. Like obviously it could be updated or made cooler looking, but now it's taken down and it's just a Budweiser ad. I'm like that's crazy. And I don't know when that happened, if that was this season or not. I don't remember seeing it before opening day. And it's like, it's like literally everything's an ad. And but I think the ballpark itself is still a great place to watch games. Obviously, the crowd's awesome in October, but vantage point wise, I think it's great. The views, the skyline view, even though it's not right there, is still really cool. They lucked out there. But I was an usher in college, so obviously went to a ton of games in high school, and then ushered in college. So I was there like almost every game for 4 years. And the cool thing was we would move every 10 games. They would move us to a different spot in the ballpark. So, I've watched the game from almost every vantage point in the ballpark. And Harry the K's was like my least favorite spot because you were so far away. Right field, the rooftop bleachers, like when they opened the ballpark, that was such a cool idea, but they're so far away. I was there for Halliday's no-hitter, and it was like, I felt like I was watching the game from Mars. Like, it's just terrible. Like, there's no ambience. There's so far. There's no atmosphere. It's terrible. And then the other thing that I think stands out being bad is also on the rooftop is behind the batter's eye. It blocks your view if you're standing on the rooftop. So there's like probably like 45% of the rooftop up there, which is meant to be like a standing room only spot. You can't actually see the field because it's just naturally blocked by the batter's eye. So this place, it opened in 2004, but it was unveiled the plans were unveiled in 2001. So we're talking about a place that was designed more than 25 years ago, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it was designed by guys that spent their life, their business, professional life at Veteran Stadium. So some of these things just didn't work. Sight lines or they had good ideas like the rooftop bleachers, cool like Connie Mack, but it's like, not actually, it's terrible. So I would love to see almost like a rethinking, and like John Middleton said, he wants to stay here for 100 years or something. So it's like I'd love to see them like rethink the ballpark a little bit and like maybe just make it better. And like you can put all the ads you want, like that's great. It is what it is at this point. You're fighting an uphill battle against the ads, but I would love to see them make a great ballpark like even better and like dramatically rethink it the way that some like Coors Field dramatically rethought some of the things they did. I would love to see that. And I think that is probably, if we're going to stay here for 100 years, they're going to have to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Bob, you got anything else?
So that's what I wanted to. Is this stadium going to be here? Let's say Tim's 30 years old. He's probably got another 70 years here in this world. Is he going to see his last baseball game at what is now called Citizens Bank Park? Do you think they'll do that? Do you think they'll revamp it, but still keep what you called and what it is a great stadium?
They'll revamp it, but there is zero chance they stay here for 100 years. Like it's just the Eagles are trying to get a new stadium already. It's like that's just the way it goes. The vet didn't last even this long. So. Once it's all about money, and just like the ads is, do they have enough suites or do they have enough club boxes? The Diamond Club, is it big enough? That's what the next frontier will be, a ballpark that has even more of those luxury seats, luxury areas. And so I would love to see them obviously pump a ton of money in the Citizens Bank Park and make it even better. But in reality, if Tim's here when he's 100, he's taking his great-great-grandkids somewhere else and hopefully has enough money to buy a good, nice seat.
And hopefully the ads aren't blocking us. I don't think there's going to be an analog clock to tell time. I don't know if the analog clocks will even exist anymore at that time. But thanks to Matt Breen for joining us. You can check out all of his work on the Inquirer, and we will be right back. So a special thank you to Matt Breen. As I said there, Matt is the same kind of sick as I am with some of these things. Like he loves talking about different features around the ballpark and stuff like that. So I certainly enjoyed that conversation with Matt, and I know Bob did as well. This is the OnPattison Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Wapner Newman. Found yourself on the injured list? Get help now. Call Wapner Newman, PA in New Jersey's premier medical malpractice and injury attorneys at 215-569-0900 or visit wapnernewman.com. And as we start to try to put a bow on some of these, and I guess Bob's having some technological issues there, but as we try to put a bow on some of this stuff, there is a positive development, at least in my opinion. John Middleton, as Matt mentioned in the story or in the interview, said that he told me that he envisions the Phillies. His goal is for the Phillies to still be at Citizens Bank Park in 100 years. What he also said that I think was interesting is he envisions Citizens Bank Park always being an outdoor stadium, which, sounds obvious, but you have the Eagles now, as Matt mentioned. They're starting to do some research about potentially getting a new stadium in the not so distant future. And it sounds like there's a very real possibility that will come with some sort of retractable roof dome situation. In the case of Citizens Bank Park, John Middleton does not envision that being the case. And he said, quote, "To be outside in the middle of the spring and summer and early fall is special." He did say there's a few days of the year where, yeah, it'd be great to have a roof if it's 98 degrees or if you're in March or April and it's 20 degrees. But for the most part, things are great outside. And he added, if you go to stadiums that have roofs, they're really massive. They feel heavy. Frankly, you feel enclosed and tight, so I don't want that. And I was very encouraged to hear that because I understand from a business perspective that having a roof where it makes it possible for you to have events and concerts and whatnot the entire year, you don't have to worry about rainouts. I get all that, but I'm somebody, I'll take the rainout. Give me the rainout over playing in an indoor facility because, as John Middleton said, it's not quite as bad with some of the newer domes, but you go to Houston or Milwaukee or some of these stadiums, Bob, that have been there for a long time. When they have the roof closed, it's just, it does. Heavy is the right word. You feel like you're in a building as opposed to at a park.
I hate it. I hate it. And were you on the Texas trip this year?
No, but I've been at that stadium in the past.
You've been there. So we go in one day and it was 74 degrees and, maybe a little bit humid or whatever. And it's closed and it just feels, I hate it. I hate baseball inside. Don't like it a little bit. That is a sport that needs to be outside. And look, here in Philadelphia, 92% of the time, you're playing outside in decent elements, save maybe April and May, a little bit of May. And maybe if you go until November, if you're lucky enough, there is nothing better than a day game outside, sunny weather, or even in the summertime, a 7:00 start, 6:40 start. It's the greatest. And being inside, it does. Heavy is a great word. You're exactly right that John Middleton used. I'd never want to see that here. I don't even like dome football. Elements are elements, and that's what you have, and so be it. I mean, Tim, think about it. If the Eagles play 9 games at home, we'll include one playoff game. How many times over 9 games is it like the kind of weather you just don't want to go out in? Maybe 2?
Yeah, max. I mean,
yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So, elements is what those sports are about. I love that part of the game. I love that you have to adapt to that sometimes. And I think we're fine here in Philadelphia. I love Citizens Bank Park. I like Lincoln Financial Field just fine. And I've been there more as a watcher than I have been as a media member. I think it's a great place. The whole stadium atmosphere or South Philly Stadium Park complex, I think it's fine. Do upgrades need to be made? Absolutely. But I'm fine with everything down there.
Yeah, and we may turn this into a little bit of like a series because I think there's something to be said about the future of football. I feel like there's more of a reasonable minds can disagree on that. It's insane that we're already talking about the Eagles getting a new stadium. There's nothing wrong with Lincoln Financial Field. So from that perspective, it's crazy. But I don't think anything's particularly like memorable about Lincoln Financial Field. Citizens Bank Park, if they were talking about a new stadium, I think people would be irate because they love going down to the park, even with some of these things we've talked about and maybe losing a little bit of the charm. there is something to Citizens Bank Park. At the very least, it's in the top half of the league in terms of stadiums. And the point you made about Texas is absolutely right. Tim Kalishaw, who has written for the Dallas Morning News probably longer than I've been alive, tweeted yesterday that this is why he didn't like them moving across the street from the ballpark in Arlington there. It was 74 degrees, sunny, no rain, and they have the roof closed. And people say, well, you can just keep it open, but you have it there if it rains, or it becomes the second it's mildly windy or it's a little too hot, or we're going to leave it up to the starting pitcher, and players almost always are going to choose the neutral site rather than being at the game. And I get why they do that, but in terms of watching the game, I like that there's a day where the wind is blowing out a little bit, or where it is hot. Like, I understand there's certain stadiums, Arizona, when Miami, obviously, when the A's, assuming they do to move to Vegas, some of these places you have to have a roof. There's no way for baseball to exist in those places without having a roof in the summer. Citizens Bank Park is not like that. And I've been there on a few 97-degree days, whatever. It happens once in a while. But this is the problem. I think there was a day the Phillies were in Houston last year where it was like 89 degrees and they have the roof closed. The second it gets mildly uncomfortable, the roof is closed, and you go from being at a stadium to being at a roof. And I can say in that stadium specifically, it feels significantly older and more like a building when you have the roof closed, as opposed to when the roof is open and you feel like you're outside at a park. There's something special about that. So I'm excited that at least for the foreseeable future, Citizens Bank Park is going to be an outdoor facility. And I may differ with Matt on that. I don't see any reason why Citizens Bank Park couldn't still be here in 100 years. And it may be that future ownership, whether it's the Middleton family or someone else, says that, no, we want a roof or a dome or something like that. And that ends up happening. But you look around at some of these facilities, Wrigley Field's still there, Fenway Park, Dodger Stadium. Like, if you maintain things, and the Phillies are doing that, there's no reason these facilities can't stand for 100 years or more.
No, and you said something earlier that kind of struck my mind. You said there's really nothing about Lincoln Financial Field that really sticks out to you. And I thought in my head, okay, people will say, well, the Vet, it was a dump, but it was our dump. Okay, what is the Vet remembered for when it comes to Eagles game? Let's see, they had to cancel a preseason game because the turf was so bad. Rats and everything running around that they had to bring in cats just to eat the rats. You had a jail down in the basement because rowdy fans, they needed someplace to go, and that was jail in Veterans Stadium. I mean, it was horrible. The field was concrete. So, like, people, and it was funny getting ready for today, Tim. Last night when I got home, I was reading stories about the differences and the turnover of stadiums. And in every story, it talked about how the Vet was just a complete dump. And that's football. And then for baseball, it was, you could sneak in at any time. And it was a horrible place to watch a baseball game. I mean, I went to many, many games at the Vet. I think now you look at Lincoln Financial Field, you look at Citizens Bank Park, they were made to model old parks, right? Like, it's not the cookie cutter round and you have the wind coming in at Lincoln Financial Field. And of course, Citizens Bank Park, as you said, was in the realm of Camden Yards and all of that. We go back, then we want to move forward to go back. And then as I said, I think things are fine. Upgrade, sure. Everybody's going to want to upgrade. But I think those two stadiums down there are absolutely fine. Do you need a dome to host a Final Four or to bring in something else during the wintertime or maybe host a Super Bowl? I don't really care about that. I really don't. And
I don't either.
Financial ramifications of it, but I just don't. I think things are great down there. Keep building and adding and whatever you want to do, but I think we have a really special place down there. Now, they could fix, obviously, the traffic and how they do things there, maybe walkways over top of the streets so that fans can move around without having to worry about getting hit by a car. But, all in all, if you're going to ask me about stadiums down there, 2 thumbs up. Well,
and put a subway stop closer to the media entrance at Citizens Bank Park. That's we got to get to
just in the car for you, Tim. How about that?
I would be thrilled to do that. But no, this was a fun conversation because I think it's something people are interested in. And quite frankly, I couldn't do another show about A.J. Brown or Jalen Hurts. So it was fun to talk about this. We'll get back to regularly scheduled programming with talking about who should be the cleanup hitter for the Phillies. And we're getting close to NFL draft time, so a lot of exciting stuff there. And obviously, the Flyers are making a playoff push. The Sixers are doing their damnedest to not make a playoff push, but they're still in the mix.
Joel Embiid's out sick tonight, Tim. I just wanted to let you know that. That just came over
Yeah.
about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, he gets sick more than a kid in elementary school. I don't really
He's
get
got bad bubble guts. Yeah, I don't know what it is. But
I don't. I have a weak stomach. I don't get sick the way that Joel Embiid does. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Yeah. But in any event, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for Wapner Newman for sponsoring this episode. Shout out to Mike Warren for producing, and we will talk to you guys next time.